Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Ben, and welcome to our Godot 4 Art Platformer series. This is part 4. This series is made possible by the students who support me by purchasing my Godot courses. If you're interested in those, there'll be a link in the comments below and at the end of the video. Let's get started. So last time we implemented our movement data resource, custom resource, to allow us to test different movement types for our character. In this video, we're going to add a double jump and a wall jump. So one of the things that I want to look at is currently our character can change directions very quickly in the air. In fact, they can change directions in the air just as quickly as they can on the ground. And that might not be something you want. You might want them to have slightly less acceleration when they're in the air. Technically, from a physics perspective, it's not possible for them to just decide to change directions while they're in the air. But video games don't necessarily need realistic physics in order to be fun. In fact, a lot of the time they're more fun when they don't have realistic physics. So what we're going to do is come into our player movement data, and we have our acceleration. We're going to create a new variable here. We'll put it down by air resistance. And we'll call this air acceleration. And we'll set this equal to 400 by default. Now we can come back into our player and we have our apply acceleration, or handle acceleration, I guess. And this currently works all the time. But we can change it so that it only works while we're on the ground. So we can come into here, we can say if not is on floor, return. This will just exit out of the function if we're not on the floor. Then we can create another function called handle air acceleration. We'll take an input axis and delta. And we can do the same thing, but this time we'll want to return when we are on the ground. So if is on floor, oops, goodness, there we go, return. And then we can say if input axis, although we don't need this, do we, since we're multiplying no, we do need it. We do need this check. So we can say if input axis not equals 0, velocity dot x equals move toward velocity dot x movement data dot speed times input axis. And then how much are we going to move by? Movement. Let's maximize the code here so we can see this. Movement data dot air acceleration times delta. Now we need to come up here and make sure that we're calling this handle air acceleration input axis delta. Okay. So we're slowly adding more and more features to our character here. And these features are going to affect the way that the character feels while we're moving around. Now, one of the reasons I like a slower air acceleration than on the ground is because of wall jumping. It makes wall jumping more satisfying if you can't just jump up the wall over and over. So let's start now by adding our wall jump, or our double jump. We'll come up to the top of our code here. Guess we're already at the top. And we're going to add a new variable to the code called double jump. Actually, let's call it air jump. So we'll come up here. Actually, we could add it to our data. That could be interesting. Different movement datas could have different amounts of air jumps. Do we want to try, but then we'd have to keep track of how many we have and whether or not we've used them. We could do that, but I think that at the end of the day, I'm just going to set air jump equal to false. We won't have a number of them. Okay, so air jump by default is going to be equal to false. Then we can come into our jump code and we can change, if we bring this up here, find handle jump, and we can change whether or not we can jump in the air. So here we have our handle jump, and we can come into here, and inside of our handle jump, we can say if is on floor, air jump equals true. This will allow us to set the air jump equal to true whenever we land on the floor. Then inside of our if not is on floor here, we can add another check. If input.is action just pressed jump and air jump. And we want to jump again. So velocity.y equals movement data.jump velocity. And we want to set air jump equal to false. Now you might want your air jump to be slightly less powerful than your normal jump. And one way to do this is just to multiply your jump velocity by something like 0.8, which would reduce it by 20%. So jumping in the air would lift you a little bit less than jumping on the ground. Now we can, we got an error message. See what it says. Handle jump, input map, action, jump. Oh yeah. I was using UI up. We haven't actually created any input map actions yet. And there we go. Now we have a double jump. Easy, right? Simple variable. Now let's see if we can get our wall jump working. And having both of these at the same time is going to be interesting. We'll have to handle that. So let's come up to the top. Well, actually, by our jump function, our handle jump, let's create another one called handle wall jump. Now inside of here, we're going to check to see if we're on one of the walls. We can say if is on wall this. Actually, we want to say if not is on wall, return. So if our character is not on the wall, then we want to ignore this completely. We'll save. Okay, it's pretty easy to detect whether or not we're on the wall, and if we're not, then we don't want to jump at all. Now comes the slightly trickier part, though. We need to be able to tell which side we're on, right? If we want our character to jump here, we want them to jump away from the wall. And when they jump away from the wall, we need to be able to send them in a direction. But in order to send them in a direction, we have to know which direction the wall is. Otherwise, we might send them into the wall, which doesn't make any sense. So we need to get the wall normal. So we'll just say var wall normal, and we can do get wall normal. So if we're on a wall, this function right here will be able to detect that there's a wall near us and get the normal. Now a normal is just a vector that points away from the wall. So it gives us the direction that we want to jump in. So once we've done that, we can say if, do we want to use the jump key or the arrow keys for this? This is a tough one. Let's try using the arrow keys. If input is action just pressed UI left and wall normal equals vector 2 dot left. Okay, so if we're pressing to the left and the wall normal, which again points away from the wall, so that means the wall is actually to our right, is equal to left, then we can jump and we'll just say velocity dot x equals wall normal dot x times movement data dot speed. So we'll jump off the wall at our maximum speed. If input dot is action just pressed. Oh, we need to actually jump too. So velocity dot y equals movement data dot jump velocity. Okay, and then we can do jumping off the wall in the other direction. If is action pressed, UI right, and wall normal equals vector 2 dot right, then we can say velocity dot x equals wall normal dot x times movement data dot speed, and velocity dot y equals movement data dot jump velocity. Okay, let's see how this looks. We need to come up here and we need to call it now. So where we're calling handle jump, let's also call handle wall jump and see how this works. I don't know. Okay, and there we go. We have our double jump and our wall jump. So let's create a scenario where our character could jump up the wall. We'll come over to our world and we'll click on our, we'll add another static body actually. So let's add another static body. And then we'll just make this one, we'll just make it a collision shape instead of a collision polygon. And we'll just do a simple rectangle. We can position this over here. Make it 3 wide as well. And we'll come down like this. And if we come to our player, we haven't actually added a camera. But adding a camera to the game is really easy. We can come into our player scene. We can press the plus here and add a camera 2D. And it will create a camera around our player. Now we want to move it up a little bit because it's the player's feet. So we can actually come into its transform and adjust the Y by maybe -8. That puts it more in the center of the character. Now, actually, because we're doing a platformer, it might be more useful to have more information above us than below us. So we can do, let's do -32. So the camera is actually positioned slightly up for the player, like that. Now our static body here, we won't be able to see it because, again, the collision shape is going to be invisible. So let's add a new color rect to it. And we'll just manually position this as well right here and save. Okay. Now we should be able to see it. We can see the camera is following the character, and we can jump and wall jump up this sequence right here. Feels pretty good. Let's see if we can make it up from this side. We just can't quite. Yeah, so that's one of the things about having a slower air acceleration is it prevents the player from being able to just wall jump up walls. Now again, that's up to you. We could come into our faster movement data and set the air acceleration to the same. So, well, like 800 or something. And then when we come into the faster movement data and come to our player, drop the faster movement data. And then you can play around with that. You can be like, okay, this is our faster character that can jump much higher. Almost can jump up there. And what? Man, it's definitely harder to control. If I jump, I can actually just wall jump up this and make it all the way up. I'm gonna set it back to the default movement data, and I'm gonna actually increase the default movement data's acceleration to 1000 because I like the slightly faster acceleration, especially on the ground. I don't want the character to feel like they struggle when they're on the ground. I can't tell if I want that to be jump or if I want it to be left and right. It could be both. We could try setting it to jump as well. UI jump. This, of course, we'd have to prioritize wall jumping over double jumping. Otherwise, we'll lose our double jump whenever we wall jump. Yeah, and we're getting an error message, actually. You can see UI. Of course, I did UI jump again instead of UI up. I really want to just do... I'm about to the point of adding in the actions. Okay, so what happens is when we do try and wall jump like this, it definitely makes it easier to try and climb the wall. Like our character can even still climb the wall a little bit if you time it right. But it makes it a little harder to go back and forth between the walls. Because it feels like I have to switch directions with the arrow keys now. But that could be partially because I'm using up for jump. So again, as a designer, this is a decision that you're going to need to make. But what we want to make sure it does is we don't want it to use our air jump. We don't want it to use our air jump if we just wall jumped. And fixing this, because currently, if we try and wall jump, it immediately uses our air jump and wall jumps at the same time. And we don't want it to do that. So fixing this is pretty easy if we just use a variable. So we can say var just wall jumped. I think this will work. I haven't tested it, so we're doing some live programming here. And then we'd come into here, and inside of our wall jump code, and technically, if we use up for wall jumping, like we are, we no longer need this check, like that, and we no longer need this. We can just do this if we're pressing up and we're against a wall. And then we'll say just wall jumped equals true. Okay? And, oh, whoops, I forgot. Then we want to come down into our double jump, and we want to say, and not just wall jumped. Basically, we'll turn off our air jump for a single frame if we just wall jumped. And it's still not. Oh, we don't have an air jump. What happened to our air jump? Just wall jumped equals, let's see. We'll need to set just wall jump back to false after here. I don't like this solution. Well, I don't think I mind it if we set just wall jumped equal to false at the end of the physics process. Okay, just wall jumped equals false. Yeah, so that's what I forgot to do. So what we're doing is we're checking for the wall jump. And if we do wall jump, we set just wall jump equal to true. And then as the code runs through each of these, we're going to get down to, oh, our handle jump is actually first. Interesting. I didn't realize that. Let's swap them because my code is designed for it to be second. So we wall jump, and then we set just wall jump equal to true, and then inside of handle jump, it handles our double jump as well. And it's going to check and say, oh, is just wall jumped equal to true? And if it is equal to true, then it won't double jump because we're wall jumping on this exact frame. Then it will get all the way down to the end of our physics process and we'll set it back to false. And then on the next frame, we will be able to double jump. And there we go. We can now double jump after wall jumping. But we don't get it back after we touch the wall again. Now this feels the best to me I prefer using the up key rather than the left and right keys. I prefer having a jump key for wall jump. Okay, now this is a problem. See that? When we're in a corner right here and we try and just jump while we're holding forward, it actually wall jumps. And that's a problem. So how can we solve that problem? Well, I'm pretty sure that instead of, for our wall jump, let's remove this code since we're not going to use that anymore. Instead of doing is on wall, I'm pretty sure there's a function that is only on wall. Let's check the documentation. Is on wall only. So this would prevent us from wall jumping if our character is on the ground. So we'll say is on wall only, like this. And this is a new function in Godot 4, and you can see that solves that problem. So when we're on the ground, if we try and jump, it won't wall jump. So we can only wall jump if we're only on the wall. This is actually pretty fun. Moving around inside of this level is fun. It's interesting. Okay, so that's going to be it for this lecture. Hopefully you enjoyed it and learned something. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you all later.